All right, well, welcome to today's webinar, the IBM Power Play at HelpSystems. This webinar is all about our industry-leading software that's centered around the IBM Power platform, specifically IBM I, but we'll also mention a few things like AIX and Linux on Power today, as we do have solutions that not only work on IBM I, but they work on other platforms. Very excited to be with you today. We're coming to you via GoToWebinar today. And as we go through today's presentation, it is being recorded. We have an excellent cast of other presenters from HelpSystems to share the story. And if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please just put them into the questions toolbar. We'll answer them at the end. Also, just to remind you, there will be 2 polling questions today. And with that said, let's get over to our first presenter today, Miss Sandy Moore from Reno, Nevada. Sandy, what do you do for HelpSystems?
Hi, Tom. I am a security consultant for HelpSystems. I work with customers on security projects and identifying needs in the security area and proof of concept, all sorts of stuff.
Whole career built around security for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Greg Schmidt, local fellow Minnesotan. How are you doing today?
Yeah. I'm doing wonderful.
Excellent.
Yeah, so what I do for HelpSystems is I'm the senior solutions engineer for the document forms and management brand, and then also the business intelligence. This is my 21st year, so I've been really helping companies. My main goal is helping companies, obviously with the solution itself, but really, how we can help them on that digital transformation journey of their data and documents. That's my focus.
That's really interesting, Greg, because you're really solving business problems each and every day as you work with customers. Isn't that true?
That's very true. Yeah, especially in the AP automation, as you'll see some slides later in the presentation today. AP automation, AR automation, but yeah, really departmentally focused kind of functions from creating customer presentable forms and stuff like that too. But yeah.
Awesome, Greg. I'm looking forward to your story. Thank you. And then we have Mr. Ash Giddens over in the UK. Ash, how are you today?
I'm very good, Tom. Pleased to be here today. I think Greg beats me. I've only been here for just approaching 16 years now, and I tend to focus in and around systems management and the automation solutions on well, not just IBM I, but kind of anything that runs on Power, really. And I sit on the Common Europe Advisory Council for IBM I, where we speak to, we meet, we greet, and we find out what's happening with our wonderful platform a little bit before the main influx of people, which is great. And recently been made an IBM champion, like yourself, Tom, something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, congratulations on that. And yes, I'm Tom Huntington. I'm our Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions at HelpSystems, and also broadcasting from Minnesota, and Power Champion, and somebody who's been with HelpSystems for over 3 decades already, which is kind of mind-boggling. Every day I think about that. But certainly today, we do still talk a lot about IBM I, but with the Power platform, as you know, you can run IBM I, AIX, and Linux on it. And so certainly as we go through things today, we'll try and point out technology that also can work on AIX and Linux on Power as we go through this presentation. So thank you all for joining, and look forward to taking us through our agenda, which you can pretty much read here. We're going to talk about security, BI, monitoring, automation, capacity planning, document management, and then of course, answer any of your questions. If you have any questions about HelpSystems, we look forward to answering any of those questions as best we can. All right, so first polling question. And I have myself running the poll today, so let me bring that up. So one of the questions we want to know is, where do you do your research when you're looking for new products? And so you can select all that apply. You use search engines like Google, Bing, and others. Consultants, software review sites like G2 and Capterra, IBM hardware resellers, or other. And if you do choose other, or you have other suggestions of where you look for product information, feel free to put that into the Q&A just go ahead and we say chat it in, but I don't believe you guys can use chat with GoToWebinar. So Ash, where do you do your research? What's the first thing you do?
You know what, Tom? Normally, when we're out and about networking at events, it's usually through networking, talking to like-minded people, and seeing what they use for particular problems. But I guess now we're home-based. I tend to start on search engines, typically Google, and end up on software review sites. So I kind of complete the circle, just getting a feel for kind of common comments with those particular solutions. So yeah, that tends to be me.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, for me, it's the Power Champion program has been one of the most excellent programs for meeting others and networking. And others talk about networking too. We have a few LUG members with us, and they mentioned the large user group from IBM. So, well, thank you for sharing that information, and we'll take a look at our results. It looks like 100% of you are going to your Internet Explorer, Google, Chrome, whatever you're using for a browser and searching, which makes sense today's world. And then 20% consultants, 10% software review sites, 30% IBM hardware resellers, and then we had some other suggestions. So feel free to throw those other suggestions out there. And really a question from our marketing team, wanted to know where you're going for information. So thank you for answering that first polling question. So when you think about HelpSystems, we don't always think about the fact that we're a company that's bringing together security and automation. We want to build a better IT for you. And the way we're doing that is looking at both security and automation as intersections. If you're protecting your environment with security, you might need automation to help make sure that the rules are in place, or that if somebody makes a change to security, that the configuration comes back into place, or that the process of passing the audit happens automatically. So at HelpSystems, automation and security are really intersecting points. And really, if we think about where Greg spends a lot of time in document management, we really feel that automation, document management, securing those documents are all part of the equation. If you don't know by now, I do the IBM I marketplace study. I've been doing that for 7 years. And in that study, we know that there are some things that are high on everybody's mind. And interestingly enough, we also do a similar study for the AIX platform. And IBM I security is much higher than it is on the AIX as top concern, then high availability, modernizing applications, IBM I skills, and data growth. And probably the bigger change this last year is we saw a little bit of an increase by about 7% in reduced IT spending. It makes sense in this COVID year. There's organizations that have been struggling to stay in business, and certainly all of us tightening the belts because of the unknown future. But security is number one, and high availability number two, and modernizing. And we'll talk about these technologies as we roll through today's presentation. And so from a high level focus, HelpSystems, if you can see, around IBM I, we do backup recovery and HA, document management, the cybersecurity technology. We've been monitoring systems unattended and alerting people, attended over the last 3 decades plus. We've been helping customers with business intelligence. Really, the technology's been around for at least 3 decades. Capacity planning, we work with all the business partners around the world, including IBM, in helping you size your Power server, IBM I, AIX, and Linux. And then, of course, automation. Automation started HelpSystems. We started with a product called Robot Schedule. So first up, we're going to move into security. And Sandy, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the Powertech offerings.
Yeah, so security is a hot topic. And if anything I've saw out of 2020 was that security is actually even more high profile than ever before, with work from home and all of the unfortunate threats that are now out there fueled by the pandemic. It really has gone nuts. And, Powertech, we really have a solution set that can fit any customer's needs. So regardless of what compliance requirements you have, whether it's internal or external, if you just have a small shop where you have a concern that, hey, this IBM I is the center of our business, and if something happens to it, we're done. And so really being able to provide those solutions, and the portfolio covers the gamut of everything that you could need. We're managing user profiles that have too much authority, which we see a lot, and making sure that users can't get into the system outside of their authorized method, multi-factor authentication, making sure that the person connecting to your system is really who they say they are. So all of those things play a really big part of that whole security scope. And being able to pull from our years of experience and all of the powerful products we've got really lend to having the ability to get full control over security on your system. So that's the goal there. Most of our security conversations start with, recommendations from our security scan, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this really gives us a lot of options for identifying and narrowing in on what exactly the security risks are for every different environment. So one of the things we can do, let's talk about security services. Next slide there, Tom. Is so we've got a great professional security services team that can give you assistance. Sometimes it's we don't have enough people left. People have retired, people have been laid off. Whatever the reasons are, you've got less time, less resources to actually get some projects done. So the security services team can help with basically anything around security on the system, whether it's managed security services, doing a risk assessment, and doing a deep dive look at what's going on your system. How bad is it? Let's get some remediation and mitigation plans in place, pen testing. So nothing better than being able to prove if your security posture is actually working. Is this actually working? Can somebody get to our server? All right, so we always start with, when we're actually talking with customers, is our security scan. So this really gives us a high-level overview of where you're at on your system. And we go through and we check multiple areas of security on IBM I. We also have this for AIX and Linux. So Tom was mentioning that we do have multiple platforms that we're able to provide reviews for. This is a great place to start. It's free, which is cool, and you can most time you get an hour review with us, and so we'll go through and talk about what it found. Exit Point Manager gives us the ability to put controls around your system. This is probably one of the most common places for people to start, controlling those external connections to our system and making sure we don't have someone sneaking in a back door to your server. Really full control over that, even those all object users. So we're able to really get that visibility and control of who's connecting and how they're connecting and how they're accessing data on the server. Antivirus is another layer of control, critical piece to be able to scan your IFS for viruses. And this Powertech Antivirus was built actually at the request of IBM. So this isn't something we thought, hey, we should go build an antivirus for this platform and nobody realizes they need it. IBM said, hey, we've got a problem here. So they've built the infrastructure. We're able to scan to make sure that the IBM I is not part of an infection in a network. It's not able to host a virus up to those PCs mapping drives or sharing files out to a vendor, allowing us to scan multiple platforms there as well, Linux, AIX, Linux One, really expanding our portfolio there. So we've got layers of control, making sure we know every server is being scanned is not going to be impacted by malware. Of course, our SIEM agent, it's all about, once you start doing things on IBM I, getting the information up to the right people. So we have a SIEM agent for IBM I that allows you to pull information from Audit Journal, our Powertech Security Solutions, message queues, as well as other journals, and pushing that information up syslog format to a SIEM. So whether it's our Powertech Event Manager or one of the many other tools out there, you've got Splunk, QRadar, all of the above, pushing that information up. What I find a lot is with some SIEM agents or some tools have an agent that just pushes everything up there. And so then the SIEM team is dealing with too much noise, too much information, and they're not willing to parse it out because they don't know IBM I very well. So with our Powertech SIEM agent, we could pick through, grab the right things to push up to the team, the things that matter, that need the attention by the security team. So a lot of options there, really about getting that information to the right people.
And that's a really interesting point. If you think about it, it's a form of automation. So Ash and I spend a lot of time helping customers with monitoring systems and filtering out things that are not important. And the beauty of this product is it does it at the source. So why send up all the noise to Splunk and where you're spending money on per terabyte of storage? Why not filter it from an IBM I perspective? And that's exactly what the SIEM agent for IBM I. I know we don't have time to go through every single product in the Powertech family today, but it is a very broad product line. The other thing that we do within security is manage file transfer. And GoAnywhere is this product that started on the IBM I platform and then over the years was made into really a multi-platform type product or multi-operating system type product. It sports a web interface, a command line interface, and API interface so that you can integrate your managed file transfers. So then the platforms it supports, of course, AIX, IBM I, Linux on x86, Linux on Power, and then file services, FTP, SFTP, works with the cloud. There's cloud connectors with this technologies. It has the ability to work, of course, with DB2 to extract data and with Oracle and other databases that might be on AIX and other platforms. And of course, the other part of this is that this application that it builds is a workflow of automation around managing files. And then we do integrate it with our scheduling tools like Robot Schedule and help with moving the data from IBM I, from the IFS, from a library out to a trading partner somewhere around the globe. This also integrates with your emails and provides that auditing that your support team needs. All right, let's move on to our next topic, which is data analytics and BI, and we'll bring Greg into the webinar. Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, all right, thank you, Tom. Yeah, so business intelligence, right? It's all about the data, and really our main goal is helping, the IT and business users and organizations to really access the data easily, right? But offer different deployment methods. So they can actually use the data and turn those into more actionable insights. So we run into a lot of companies that are really using the software to streamline the business, right? So understand more what's happening behind the business system or on their business systems by being able to create those nice professional dashboards and relieve IT of some of this stress, right? So instead of building, using Query 400, which is a little bit more complex kind of, structures, or, doing RPG programs. A lot of our customers and stuff like that that we've migrated over do this via RPG programs and stuff like that to provide that. But if they need to make changes, there's no easy way to do that. So we provide really an easy to use interface to be able to help them do that process and really remove that time-consuming coding function and certain knowledge levels that they might have to be able to build that and really go after the real-time data instead of going after data warehouse information. Even though we can do both, go after data warehouses, but live data is much more interesting to people, right, at that point, because it's real, and they can make course corrections faster off of that data. Next slide, Tom. And we really look at and break it down into sort of those three sections, right? So the first one is the collect and discover phase. And really, so SQL is built with DB2 as the core technology that we can go after from a database standpoint. But we have a lot of customers that have a mixture of data. So if they're creating dashboards, they might have a dashboard with DB2 information. They might have it with something that lives on a different server, MySQL database or a SQL server. But we really can connect to any database that's type 4 JDBC driver compliant. So we can actually do that. But sort of that three-step methodology is collecting and discovering that live data from all those different sources, right? So if it's DB2 or any of the other sources, and then really understand and design around that data to be able to say, hey, what do users need to do with it? Do they need to pivot around the data? Do they need to do reports or dashboards? and then be able to deploy that in different methods using, web browser interfaces or dashboards, or even, directly in Excel through our plugins. And so again, we're keeping, the data in the background. We're always, thinking about the end result at all times, right? So being able to take that information and provide it to users in a variety of ways, right? So if it's a dashboard that you want to share via a web interface for, analyzing the key business metrics a little bit deeper, or use pivot tables to be able to do that, to slice and dice information. Drill down analysis is big, so not just showing the data, but then being able to drill into it to get to more of that information in the background to see what makes up that pretty little graph or chart. And then being able to, a lot of users, very Excel driven. So single click Excel functionality directly from Excel or from our web interfaces to be able to access that and start to manipulate that data in Excel. But really, it's around that full function of data analyzing your business data to be able to use it to make the business drive forward.
Thank you, Greg. In my experience in talking to HelpSystems customers is that there's a lot of customers out there that have what I call failed data warehouse implementations. The data is late, it's old, it's not reliable, and yet we have such a powerful tool like SQL, like you said, that's so easy you can get at it right from the system. I'm always amazed the number of customers that aren't using more of SQL.
Yeah, data replication is huge, right? And even on the doc management side, we don't want to do data replication if we don't have to, right? So that's why if we can go after the live data and use that, much better best practice methodology.
Very good point. So monitoring, we turn it over to Mr. Ash over in the UK. Ash, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. We're going to start by talking about monitoring. We're going to talk about Halcyon to begin with. This was an acquisition that I came from nearly 6 years ago now. So Halcyon is, as we say here, it's multi-platform monitoring, automation, and actually reporting software for IBM I, of course, but also anything that lives on Power. So AX, Linux. We've also got the capability to monitor Windows servers as well. We can do it from a centralized console, so from a graphical console that sits there in the middle, tends to be installed on a Windows server, and we point any Halcyon agent to that console. So you've got this single pane of glass throughout your whole enterprise. And Halcyon in the HelpSystems arena is really the number one choice for managed service providers. Although we obviously have lots of direct customers as well, that tends to be kind of Halcyon's sweet spot, I think. If we go on to the next slide, Tom, so this is how one side of Halcyon sits. This is the IBM I server suites. So we started off with literally dozens of products, nearly 30 products. And customers used to have a pick and mix approach. They would pick whatever products they were interested in, but it became too cumbersome. So we've now split them into 4 suites, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So level 1 is a very basic entry-level suite. There's message monitoring, there's job queue monitoring, device monitoring, the ability to monitor output queues and spool files and things like that. And then as we go towards the right, we go to level 2. That's got everything that level 1 has, plus the little ticks in orange there. So object monitoring is a great one, so that allows you to monitor the IFS for things that have happened or not happened. Of course, performance, system-wide metrics, and job or thread-wide metrics. And then we straddle the audit journal manager to raise alerts if things have been written to the audit journal. And then as we go again towards the right, we've got level 3. That's the detail behind the alerting. So whereas level 1 and level 2 can tell you things have occurred or not occurred, level 3 can give you that detail as to why the system ASP is its percentage, etc. And then level 4 simply adds a job scheduler. Now there's a couple of bolt-on products here that we don't really publicize, and that's the MQ, the IBM MQ manager, and the Mimics monitor. They dovetail into any one of those suites. Templates. This is a big thing for Halcyon. So we we've worked with vendors where possible. Where it's not been possible, we've worked with kind of powerful users in the user community for these particular products, and we've spoken to them. We've asked them what are the key things to monitor on these particular applications, and we've converted those discussions and the like into templates. So we've got those on I, we've got them other platforms as well. So you simply install Halcyon on whatever platform you're talking about, and you apply a key, a free key that populates a number of rules depending on which applications you've got. So that allows you to kind of hit the ground running, gives you that foundation which you can then build upon. And then as we jump the other side, we've seen IBM I server suites. This is the other side. This is network server suite. So this is what covers Windows, Linux, both on Power and x86, AIX, and BIOS as well. And there's a little product we don't talk much about called the Web Application Monitor, and this is worth its weight in gold. This can monitor kind of content on any HTML web page. So we use that predominantly to monitor a number of Infor applications that have this web front end. So we monitor content on that, either things that should exist that don't, or vice versa, raise alerts and push those up to that enterprise console that you see there on the left. So that's quite a busy console. We like to keep it clear. And what you see here is really the ability to manage Halcyon from the palm of your hand with free free Apple and Android apps, allowing you to basically have the console on your phone and not just be able to just view the alerts, but to be able to see the details and to respond to them. So to acknowledge, to close them, to forward it as an email. So you literally can manage your whole environment, whatever platform you're running from your mobile phone.
Thank you, Ash. And you know, we also have the robot solution, of course, which is what everybody is probably more familiar with, along with Halcyon for monitoring. And those are really our two go forward strategies for customers. And Robot Console, Network, and Alert are kind of the equivalent of a lot of the functionality in Halcyon, although a little different, really focused on automating QSys Opera, QSys Message, and then monitoring of resources like job queues, et cetera. And also in the robot product line, we have Robot Monitor, which I'll show you in a little bit, which is more of a graphical kind of real-time performance dashboard that we have out there. And for those who might be struggling with IFS and deeper library analysis on disk storage, we have the product called Robot Space, and that's been used by a lot of our customers for analyzing that area. We still do memory management with Robot AutoTune. We have customers that use that product and swear by it. And of course, throughout the robot family of products, you'll see Robot Alert. It's just really our email, text messaging technology. It is technically a standalone product. Back in the day, we used to have a lot of service departments that used Robot Alert by itself. All right, so Robot Monitor is this central dashboard that we can put around the IBM Power platform for that matter. It is IBM I centric. It's grabbing statistics every 30 seconds and can be that dashboard or that graphical view, especially very powerful for new users to the platform. Instead of looking at a green screen or looking even at a GUI of events, this gives them a dashboard. And if we see something red, and of course we got lots of red on here just for example, you know, like a high CPU or high number of job logs or a high disk storage of QHIST, and then of course jobs or subsystems that aren't running that we would expect to be running. Those are the kind of visuals that we're trying to give you, which are highly customizable. I just looked at a customer that had 80 partitions on one dashboard. And of course, in that scenario, they're only looking at CPU and DASD, right? In your scenario, maybe you have just one partition or 5 partitions. You have the ability to put more of these ingredients all on one dashboard. And of course, it's not just about IBM I anymore, because many of you run BIOS partitions. And so we can tie BIOS in here. We can also tie AIX and Linux on Power. We can monitor all of those from one central spot, monitor the performance, check the PTF accuracy, also monitor things like MQ series, Power HA, BRMS, Mimics, of course, libraries, jobs, and subsystems, all from this dashboard, which is highly customized to your environment. You can put, green lights around jobs are running, red light, the job is ended. You can do color around, amount of storage that you're using. You also can have events here. There's notification, there's integration with Robot Alert, Robot Network, Robot Schedule for that matter, in the Robot Monitor solution. But then one of the other really strong pieces of this is I can drill from a high CPU job into the actual job that's running and even see the SQL statements. So if I have one of those QZDA SONIT jobs that's causing problems on the system, who is it? What is it? What are they doing underneath the covers? Maybe Greg Schmidt wrote an SQL with SQL that's causing problems on the system. Sorry, Greg. And then we turn our attention to Robot Console, and this too, like Halcyon, monitors QSysOper. That's a main reason Robot Console has been a mainstay in the robot solution since the early 90s, being able to monitor QSysOper, answer messages automatically, but then over the years also do resource monitoring. This is all done through a GUI interface with integration with Robot Alert. We can do two-way SNMP or two-way SMTP rather, to be able to respond to messages right from a cell phone. And then there is the browser support as we've integrated that with Insight technology, so you can see your QSysOper messages and critical events from that browser. All right, Ash, over to you to talk about capacity management performance planning.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here really is our Performance Navigator product that we acquired from MPG some 4.5 years ago now. So this really is a graphical tool that uses freely available data. And when I talk about freely available data, I'm talking about collection services data that's running on IBM I, Enmon data that's running on AIX and VIOS, and the Linux machines, plus SAR or SAR data on Oracle, HP UX, HP servers, Solaris. There's free data everywhere, and it's incredibly useful. You can conduct performance analysis, capacity planning, server consolidation. A lot of people are doing server consolidation at the moment to reduce footprint and overhead, and also problem determination, all with no additional overhead. We're talking about IBM I. Collection services is running by default. It's running in the background, typically every 5 or every 15 minutes. It's used by customers, business partners, and even IBM's tech line. And what you see here is a kind of a selection or a snapshot of what you can do. So you can produce reports manually. You can have them scheduled for you. In addition, you can perform forensics, conducting things such as comparing 2 points in time to see what's changed. We've also done a lot around PM400. As you may not know or may know, PM400 no longer exists. It was stopped last year. So we've got some PM400 equivalent reports in here, again, that can be run manually or can be scheduled. And I kind of describe Performance Navigator as a techies playground. Techies love this product, and management love it as well, because you can produce graphs. So techies love the detail, management love the graphs, I guess, to put it simply, Tom.
Very much so. We see, this tool is being used a lot too to help customers plan for the cloud. So if you're considering Power in the cloud, you can use Performance Navigator for that too. All right, well, let's talk automation, get back to the Robot family of products. And, what started HelpSystems was a product called Robot, and Robot was a scheduling tool, and that is the founding product. From that, we've also done the enterprise, and we've also automated interactive screens with Robot Replay. So we can run your batch activity, we can run your interactive activity, we can run your non-IBM I workload through Robot Schedule from a centralized enterprise scheduling standpoint. And then we also got into high availability over the last 5 years with Robot HA. And of course, we have Robot Save, and also we work on some of the IBM technology in both of these areas in Power HA and BRMS as part of our solutions that we work through. So when we think about automated scheduling, robots running on IBM I, it has special integrations with Enterprise One from JD Edwards. So for those of you out there familiar with the concept of UBEs, we have direct integration with the universal batch engine of Enterprise One so that we control those jobs. We have integration with SAP running on IBM I, which there's a few thousand customers that use SAP on IBM I, and we can integrate with the BAPI processes inside of SAP. And then Robot Replay has been around for many years. It was really the answer for automating a product line from which was IBM, but then in 4 called Mapix XA, and still today is doing, along with Mapix XA, many other applications where a green screen or interactive process is required. We can run it, put in dates and times, etc. And then from a scheduling standpoint of the enterprise, we have Robot Schedule Enterprise. You know, Robot Replay, Robot Schedule Enterprise, those are optional modules that we can add on to provide integration with other servers. Let's get rid of those timed events between IBM I and Windows. I just had another customer I was talking to just yesterday about this, and they have a process where they're FTPing data from IBM I to another server, and then something runs at 7 p.m. and then something runs at 8 p.m. We can make that all event driven so that you don't have issues with where did the failure happen, and let robot control the enterprise. We can run SSIS packages, we can run cron scripts through here, Windows BAT files, we can monitor files, we can monitor processes, and make sure that your life between IBM I, which is very reliable, and your life with some of the other servers, which maybe aren't as reliable, can become more reliable when it comes to night processing. Now, Robot Schedule is also integrated into Insight to give you that ability to have graphical browser-based access to what's happening in your schedule and be able to even see flowcharts in there. As we see here, we can see forecasting, we can see history, we can see your job properties all running from browser. And it's just free and part of the solution. So we turn our attention over to HA, and just a little on that. We have Robot HA software that allows us to provide logical replication, which is using journaling technology from the local system to the remote system to apply database changes and keep things in sync. We're doing this real time for physical files, data areas, data queues, IFS directories, and then we're grabbing other objects using the Save Change Object APIs periodically to send over programs and job descriptions. We still read authority information, user profile information from Q Audit Journal, but this is a rule-based solution. We like to think of it as a lot easier than some of the other products that are out there. Doesn't necessarily have all the complications and all the different things that they have, but from a data replication, role swap capabilities, it fits the bill and will save you money along the way too when it comes to replication, HA, doing role swaps. Our services team is really hell-bent on making sure that you are successful with your role swaps. All right, and then over to Greg again, talk about another one of his favorite topics, document management.
Yeah, and I'll try not to take too long here. I could talk forever on this topic, but no, this is so there's a lot we can do inside of the document and forms management, solution suite, I'll call it, right? But it's really around streamlining the way companies create and capture all their data and documents, and then securely manage them with different kinds of securities, and then being able to do distribution on them. So a lot of times we're driven around document processes, maybe in certain departments, from HR to AP to any department, right? Even shipping and stuff like that. But it's really around that control and management processes. We've been doing, helping companies with that digital transformation, for decades now from that standpoint. But really those key areas is the secure workflow and management process, right? So being able to secure those documents and being able to workflow them around to enforce those different processes. And then intelligent forms and workflow management is something newer. We've been doing it probably for about 3-4 years now, but it's really that whole beyond the paper process and being able to manage the workflows. Accounts payable automation, and then document creation and assembly. Think of that as part of the AR solution kind of suite. Tom, next slide. Now I'm going to break these down here a little bit for you here. So you can, I'll talk a little bit about each of these here just really quickly, but you know, document workflow management, it's really around that secure access of documents. So being able to automate the capture of documents into the system. So if they're IBM I spool files, we have monitors that we can monitor out to the IBM I side and then convert them into PDFs or Excel documents and bring them into the system and make it usable content for individuals. We have interactive methods as well that users can interact with, like the Word add-ins and Office add-ins if they want to be able to bring different kinds of content in the system. We're content agnostic, so we really don't care what kind of content it is, if it's an email or a PDF or an image, audio, video files, you know, some of our customers do. But it's really around that, first of all, capturing it into the system and then giving access to the users through the interface, enforcing the workflow, and then being able to put that security function on the documents as they go through. Now the next one here, I love this one because there's no coding that needs to be done with this, right? So it's what we call a citizen-based developer interface. So a lot of times it's IT deployed and then user-driven or departmental-driven, but it's the forms management solution. So creating web-based forms and then giving secure access to those forms internally and externally, so individuals can fill out the data in those forms, and then the business can guide how that data is filled in there. So you get the data that you want the first time, and then securely workflow, and then do the document archive process. But we use a lot of this from the standpoint of we might be integrating to, you know, an IBM I database or DB2 database in the background, right? Where there's might not be a nice screen on the front, or I need to have data changed, like an item number needs to have changed in my ERP, but I need to go through a workflow process before it can actually be approved and the data entered into the system. So we can manage process flows like that from into your ERP systems, or just a simple, you know, HR onboarding process even at that point. So there's many ways to be able to do that, but think of forms automation capabilities. The Webdocs for accounts payable process. This is something that more of a departmental kind of a thing, but it sort of integrates everything into one, right? So it could be forms management, but it's really around the automation of the capture of the invoices, right? So using our intelligent capture capabilities that we have, so using machine learning and some of the AI technology in the advanced capture product, the advanced capture engine can monitor out to different locations, being an email network folder, scanning of documents. We can use an RPA plugin to monitor websites to be able to bring documents in, but what it's really doing is removing the manual data entry in your process. And we can put business rules around those different processes once we capture that information. So it's OCRing the document and classifying the document. So if the software is smart enough to know if it's a invoice compared to a bill of lading or a statement or a credit memo or something like that, and we can process those documents and the data off of those documents and then pass that information, especially in the AP process, directly into the ERP system matching process, 2- and 3-way matching process, or we can do that as well. Or if it's like a non-PO based process and it's say it has a business rule on it to say, hey, this is over 5,000, or this is, you know, has that certain level of granularity on it from the amount standpoint that we need to manage, we can push those into workflows inside this system and let users interact with them through the web browser interface or their mobile interfaces as well. But it's the, you know, the complete automation side of things. And then the last one here, really taking an uptick really since the whole AFP capabilities are not being supported by IBM I or IBM anymore. But it's really that document creation and assembly process, right? So being able to create customer presentable forms and deliver them to the users, right? Or deliver them to your customers, right? At that point, and putting automation around that, right? So being able to monitor for IBM I spool files, being able to monitor databases, or a mixture of a spool file and a database together to be able to create these nice presentable forms with barcodes and QR codes and static and dynamic information, and easily test it. So normally in like an AFP process, in creating AFP, there's usually anywhere from a 4 to 7 step process. We can actually take that down to basically a 2-step process. Design the data, or extract the data, and then design the form, and then they're coupled together. And the solution has native IBM I commands, so you can build them directly into your applications, RPG programs, and a full REST API to be able to integrate into the back-end side of things if you want to consume a REST API instead of using the native commands. All right, Tom.
Well, thank you, Greg. That was a quick rundown, and I know you could speak all day to those products in the document management. You probably have over the years, so I appreciate you going through that rather quickly. So as we kind of get wrapped up here today and get ready for our Q&A, I also wanted to remind you that we certainly can help you here with all these areas at HelpSystems. So I've launched a poll in the background. I'll leave up for a little bit while we take care of some of the Q&A. Feel free to choose, tell me more about your security offerings, tell me more about your automation, tell me more about business intelligence, document management, and capacity planning. It's a little bit of a popularity contest between Sandy, Ash, Greg, and myself, and who gets more votes, I guess, or something like that as you answer these polling questions. So thank you so much for that. We'll leave that up here for just a bit. And I guess from any of our guests today, any comments or anything that you failed to mention that you'd like to get out to the audience today about the HelpSystems Power technology?
Just one thing, Tom, that we touched on it briefly, but I guess Insight,
Sure.
the kind of free web-based tool that knits all of these solutions together. Obviously, it's been around a couple of years now. It's going to be replaced by HS1, HelpSystems 1. So we're looking forward to that. They'll feel very joined, make HelpSystems products feel very, very joined up and very modern as well. So it's kind of watch this space, and it's going to happen very soon, I understand.
Yeah, you'll start hearing a lot more about HelpSystems 1 second quarter. It is really a transitional product from Insight to HelpSystems 1. A lot of the content and everything will be different, but the underpinnings, we're changing quite a bit of that. So think about deployment, think about dashboards, think about product access. Those will all be part of that. And kind of our first goal at that is our whole unstructured data security area, which you'll hear a lot about too as we roll out HelpSystems 1, which is not directly our IBM I products as we have Insight, but then later on a goal to get HelpSystems 1 running natively on the IBM I platform. So I think what I'll do is close our polling question and then turn around here and move on to this slide here just to kind of give you a breadth of everything that HelpSystems does from across the board of cybersecurity and automation. Just some high level things to think about. When you talk about your organization, we can do complete penetration testing today of your entire organization. We can do complete document classification, security, encryption, identification, in-flight, resting at peace. We can take care of your documents. We can help you create your documents, as you heard from Greg today. So, and then capacity planning, it's not just about IBM I, it's all the different servers. And then from an automation standpoint, we can be IBM I centric with automation, or we could be Windows, Unix, or Linux centric with automation as we help you out. So very big breadth of cybersecurity and automation solutions. Let's see, a question in here. Related to the Halcyon solution, I think really kind of the confusion there is, is this a replacement product for the robot products, and are they complementary? And we have customers running both solutions of both Halcyon and robot on IBM I. Where they can also be complementary is we have people running Halcyon and Robot Monitor, for example, or we have people running the robot products on IBM I and doing the Halcyon Network Server Suite. So the piece that runs on AIX and Linux and monitors those environments and Windows could run in there. And one of the things we've heard a lot about here in this first quarter of 2021 is SolarWinds and the fact that they had a lot of problems. So we know organizations are looking to release or replace rather different parts of SolarWinds. And so Network Server Suite and our Intermapper product, which is network monitoring, could also tackle that. And then another great question, can Robot Monitor integrate into Splunk? And Ash, I know you answered that, but maybe dive a little further into that if you don't mind in answering that question.
Yeah, sure. So Robot Monitor was the highly customizable, highly graphical tool, and it can raise alerts, and typically it would raise an alert by pushing that alert onto a message queue. So you just need something else to pick that up from a message queue and do something with it. You could use Robot, you could use Halcyon, you could use SIEM agent, which is what Sandy talked about. So it's probably down to volume. If you're going to be generating lots and lots of alerts, SIEM agent is probably the best fit there. But yeah, you just need something to push that onto Splunk.
And I believe they have that technology from the company that asked that question. So Greg, you talked about AFP, and so we have some questions. And can you kind of further clarify what you mean by IBM not supporting AFP and what's going on with advanced function printing?
Yeah, so IBM I is not supporting going forward. I think it was at 7.3, for sure 7.4. You know, and this is something that's been going on for a couple years now that they released, but they're really releasing that part of it, and they're sort of forcing users to say AFP is still going to be available, but some of the design capabilities and the functionality is going to go away as time goes on. And especially at 7.4, there are some big changes that are happening, so they won't be able to create those AFP documents anymore. And if they have problems with it, IBM is not going to support that at that point. So that's why people are coming into and purchasing a form solution. And it's really about modernization too, right? So it's not just because the technology, the AFP process is old, right? There's not a lot you can do with it. It's limited in some of the functionality. So they're never going to build that out anymore since they're not going to support it. So that's why they're sort of pushing people to go to more of a forms package outside of that process.
Thank you, Greg. Sandy, we have somebody asking, you know, with Powertech, there's quite a few products that they saw on that chart. And so is there a kind of typical or kind of a solution set of products that people start out with when it comes to security on IBM I? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, so, you know, I think it's good starting point is getting the perimeter control with the exit point manager, adding that layer of antivirus protection, and then maybe some services hours to be able to review what shares are out there and start working on really dialing in who should really have access. Because once you have visibility to that, sometimes it's horrifying at what users are actually able and are in fact doing on the system. So our security, that's our foundations bundle that they talk about, and that's that combination of those products is usually a really great place to start.
Yeah, isn't our slogan, you know, IBM I is securable, not secured necessarily, right?
Yep, not a secure platform, it's highly securable, and so we've got to take those steps to get that system to a more secure state.
Yeah. Thank you. On that final closing note, I want to thank Ash and Sandy and Greg for joining me today. I want to thank you customers, business partners, and maybe even a few HelpSystems employees that jumped in today for joining us. Make it a wonderful day. I guess from a United States standpoint, this kind of marks our first annual pandemic anniversary. We wish all the best for you, and safety and our best go out to you and your teams, your family. We thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the March weather all over the world. It certainly is a changing time of the year. So have a great day. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.